welcome. Many of you are just joining the room at this point in time, so I'll wait a minute or two for everybody to be able to join, and then I'll introduce myself. And so I think we have 54 attendees at this point in time. Welcome. This is the first, I believe, CAO Q&A session from MTU from the various different faculties. Thank you for joining me this evening. I am Dr. Sean McSweeney. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, which means I have responsibility across all of the engineering programs. I am potentially due to be joined by a colleague, Professor Joe Walsh, who is the head of School of STEM on the MTU Kerry campus. And I may also be joined by Seamus Murphy, who leads up the Department of TEM, or Technology, Engineering and Mathematics on the Kerry campus. And I believe Seamus is just joining me now via audio. So tonight's session is an informal Q&A session, really just to answer questions you might have about specific programs and capture all your questions. I like to remind you that there's a Q&A button on the bottom of the screen. So if you have a question, click on the button and pop in the question, and we'll be able to work our way through answering those during the course of the next 45 minutes. And so as I'm waiting for questions to come in, it's worth reminding you that there's a broad portfolio of engineering programs across the university. The Faculty of Engineering itself at this point in time, and if you are reading the Irish Independent, we have an article in there that was just recently published. So the Faculty of Engineering comprises 5,555 students, believe it or not, and spans across all of the major fields of engineering. So there is a discipline in there for almost everybody. Critically and importantly, the faculty also covers architecture and maritime studies. Okay, so for those of you joining from those disciplines and those domains, you are in the right meeting. Okay, so we have our first question. Why should CAO applicants choose the electrical engineering program at MTU instead of TUS? Unusual. Okay, rather than making comparisons directly with TUS, I might give you a little bit of an insight into the lineage of electrical engineering in MTU. Okay, so there are scholarships associated with this program. Critically and importantly, the staff members in electrical engineering in MTU are directly involved with a number of national initiatives in high voltage energy. 25% of the electrical production of the country, give or take, is produced within the Southwest region. There are two primary sources of electrical engineers in the Southwest region, ourselves and UCC, that primarily feed into the support base there. Electrical engineering in MTU as well has a close tie and interaction with the Nimbus Research Centre, as well as other research entities within MTU and outside of MTU. And critically and importantly, the electrical engineering department within MTU is very old, very well established, and has a very good reputation with both the national bodies, such as ESB and others, as well as industry. In particular, that all engineering domains, but there is, in particular in that domain, an undersubscription of CAO or undergraduate students, and a significant shortfall in terms of the population. So there's a much higher demand for electrical engineers than there is a supply of undergrads. So next one, does structural engineering course allow abroad learning? Absolutely. Probably the majority of the engineering activity that occurs for those that are located within Ireland is actually servicing out engineering across Europe and across the world. I personally know somebody who went through structural engineering in MTU and currently resides in Canada and practices as a structural engineer. Real important thing within the engineering programs in MTU, which is not true for all engineering faculties and all engineering programs, is that all of our programs are Engineers Ireland certified. So we are certified with the engineering bodies. What that means is that you can travel with your degree. So you can practice your degree anywhere in the world. How do I know when electrical engineering Cork campus starts? Hi, sorry. Do you know when electrical engineering on the Cork campus starts? So the academic calendar for MTU is posted up on our website. So that includes the start dates, your dates for holidays, and all of the other items. So that'll be posted up during before the summer recess, which is on the 21st of June. But broadly speaking, will map into this year's calendar. So if you look up this year's academic calendar, you'll have quite a good idea as to when the start date is. What are the advantages of choosing general engineering over a specific engineering course? One of the key advantages of choosing the common entry or MT 830 engineering program over a specific engineering course is it does have that that first year of a more broader education, right? It allows you to potentially pivot to a different engineering program. So you might be, quite specific on your entry as to what you want to do, but you might change your mind during the course of the year. That's entirely possible. Now, the other side of that is that you don't have that narrow and deep focus right from the get-go. Okay, so if you're not sure about precisely which of the engineering programs you want to go into, it's an excellent option. Can you talk about structural engineering and the job opportunities, please? Yep. Again, this is coming from originally an electronic and electrical engineer. Structural engineering in MTU is extremely highly regarded. Job opportunities are extremely broad. One of the common questions that we get asked in terms of structural engineering is, can you practice in civil engineering? It seems to be potentially some folks think it's not synonymous, but certainly yes. So there are job opportunities both in the domestic market. That includes everything from domestic building construction, so houses and apartment blocks and others, to the government market, which is bridges, roads, and infrastructure, through to international. So many of the structural engineers that come and go through MTU find themselves working either in engineering companies here locally, such as RUP and others, with an international profile of projects, or may travel abroad and work internationally abroad. Like all of the fields of engineering, job prospects are extremely good, and there's a significantly greater demand than there is a supply of graduates. Yeah, you can certainly travel and you'll go far with it. Are there careers as architectural technologists? Yes, absolutely. Critical and a USP maybe for architectural technology for MTU, and it might be something apparent when you're applying as a CAO student, is it's uniquely different. So it's different to any of the other interior architecture courses you might see, because it's specifically a technology and engineering focus on it. What that means is that you're highly valuable to construction firms and to firms that are looking at the interior envelope and the interior infrastructure of their buildings. So there are absolutely plenty of opportunities for jobs in that. Quite a rewarding career. Can I apply for mechanical and manufacturing engineering in Kerry through the CEO change of mind, even though it requires a portfolio? Seamus, if you're on the call, this may be one that you might like to address directly.
Yeah. Hi, Sean. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Seamus. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you can. The deadline for the portfolio is coming up, all right. It escapes me at the minute. But if the portfolio is submitted and you apply elsewhere, then obviously the change of mind is open until the 1st of July. But my advice to you would be to do the portfolio and get it in. The portfolio doesn't need to be an extensive, exhaustive piece of work. It could be referred to a project that you did, a junior cert or a TY project. Just evidence of completing a project is what we're looking for. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thanks, Seamus. Thanks very much. So the next question, is there an integrated master's degree in engineering? Yes, there are integrated masters across a number of the engineering programs. There is a decision point or at year 3 in, I believe all, but certainly most of those programs that allows you to select whether you finish out with a 4-year program or whether you continue to the full MSc qualification. My advice to you, irrespective of whether you would go on directly onto an integrated master's program or whether you're going through a year 4 program, and this is as somebody who is qualified as an engineer and is aware of the field, is that you will be well advised to continue your education through to a master's program as early as possible. Whether that means you exit us at a level 8 degree and spend a year out in the field and come back as a master's in a part-time mode, or whether you go directly through an integrated master's, my advice is strongly to look at your engineering education as running all the way to master's. It'll serve you best in the longer term in your career. There's a significant differential in your midterm earnings as well. So that's important to note. I have been reading for the intakes into chemical engineering from this year on that the course won't meet the requirements for the UK Engineering Council without further study. Are there plans for this further study? Yes, so the question on that, I suppose, really is around an integrated master's and or a master's option out of the chemical engineering. Yes, there are plans certainly for that study. As a CAO intake or student at this point in time, by the stage you get to 2nd year, and certainly by the stage you're into 3rd year, there will be a route for you directly to get your full certification, a certified engineer. A certified engineer with Engineers Ireland requires a completion to a master's level. So for those of you not familiar, what is the transition process like from secondary school to college? Yeah, this is an important point. So in MTU, we take maybe quite a different approach to many of the other academic institutions. Our objective here is by the stage you finish your degree program with us, you view us more as work colleagues. That makes you more work ready by the stage you're finished with us. This also means that when you start with us, we take great care to ensure that you become part of the community. Okay. There is a transition process, absolutely. You won't be, let's say, forced to be in classes. You must be more self-motivated when leaving secondary school. However, we take great care in MTU to ensure that that's as easy as possible. And there are many, many student supports, both in terms of understanding differences in terms of how you would study and in terms of general supports for students. So there's a broad and wide support service, and hopefully most or all of you join us from the call here. But when you do join, I'd strongly encourage you to join the student societies. There's no greater support than fellow students. Hi, Sean. Is there a significant difference between the maths in level 7 and level 8? Okay, so maths is always a worry for folks joining engineering. There's many questions usually around, maybe of the nature that, I'm not an A student in Leaving Cert Honours maths. Am I going to struggle? How am I going to do, in terms of the maths requirement? So I'll try and answer this question broadly. So there is a bit of a difference between level 7 and level 8 in terms of maths. However, if you're not the strongest student coming in terms of maths, don't fret and don't worry. Okay, some of the most effective and capable engineers I know who are practitioners out in the field and over relatively significant projects actually weren't the strongest coming in terms of their mathematical background. Critically and importantly, engineering as a profession is more correctly maybe aligned to applied mathematics maybe than the Leaving Cert mathematics subject directly. And what's really important for that is being able to visualize and understand the concept, the application of the maths that you might use. Okay. Really your motivation towards understanding how to solve the problem is more important maybe than purely your raw processing power in terms of whatever mathematics field that you might be looking to apply that engineering knowledge to. Is the work placement completely random, or is it based on an area of interest? Okay, so the work placement is certainly not completely random. Okay, it's one of the areas that we really pride ourselves in MTU. Most, if not all, programs at this point in time in engineering would see you with at least a 9-month work placement, so 6 to 9 months. There is a relatively stringent interviewing process for work placement. So we have long links with those companies that take students into work placement, and we have quite a high transfer rate of students that undertake a work placement with, for example, J&J or Pfizer's or many of the other companies in terms of them transferring into a full-time employment contract. So work placement is certainly not random. It's guided by the university. You're not expected to go out and find your own work placement. And it's informed by a long-standing relationship between ourselves and the placement companies. What's the difference between civil and structural engineering? Okay. Structural engineering is more concerned with the forces and the infrastructure that you would build to support systems. Civil engineering is more concerned with areas that you would traditionally associate with town planning. Okay, so civil engineering has a slightly different flavor to structural engineering in terms of the profession itself. However, when you qualify from us, you will be capable of practicing in either domain space. Does electrical engineering allow for a broad learning? Yes, all engineering programs in MTU allow you to potentially study abroad. We are part of a broader university collective called Ingenium, INGENIUM. Before occupying this position, I was the director in MTU of Ingenium. It's 10 universities broadly scattered across Europe. So that's our closest, let's say, European collective. We are also members as an engineering faculty of CEFI, SEFI, which is a broad collective of engineering faculties across Europe, as well as having all of our programs pretty much, I think almost all, certified with their professional bodies. So you can utilize mechanisms such as Erasmus to travel in Europe, and there is US-Ireland links to travel either to the US and indeed Canada, Ireland opportunities as well. So there are many, many opportunities to study abroad if you want to do it. Are there any civil engineering options at the Cork campus? Structural engineering. So the program is MTA 31. So is the one you're looking for. Trust me, you will thank me if you decide to choose that program. What's the difference between structural engineering? I believe I've answered that question, so we'll jump on to the next one. What profile of students perform best on engineering programs? Okay, yeah, that's an important one. Engineering can be narrowly looked at in terms of just how you do in your program. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, so you might get a first class honors, 70 plus 80%, 90% potentially in your program, do very well. If you want to do well in the profession broadly, you need to get engaged with the other activities that occur on campus. So if you look up innovation awards, and you can Google this at your own time, innovation awards, and for MTU or CIT probably more historically, you'll see that students from MTU typically win national innovation awards, and they win international innovation awards across a number of the various different fields of engineering. So the profile of somebody that does well in engineering is not just somebody who's capable of doing the program. Yeah, that's fine, and that's important. But it's also to become involved in the broader community. That equally is the profile of somebody who does well in the profession after they leave us. You really need to have a broad understanding of the context to which you're applying your knowledge in order to do well in the field. What does the construction management course entail? So if you, this is true for all courses, so I'll answer it as a kind of a generic answer. So I'd encourage you to visit the MTU website for whatever program you might, whatever MT program you're applying for. It is an award-winning website, actually. It's a highly accessible website. It should look quite nice either on your phone, tablet, or on your PC, and it will have the details all the way down to the minutiae of what's in a program. So if you go to any individual program, be that construction management, structural engineering, biomedical engineering, any of the programs, and you go down to the module level, you'll see that there's a little link. You click on that, that goes into what's called our program, our portfolio of the program, and it goes down to what's called our modules, which are our single courses. So that's about 40 to 70 hours of learning. And if you click on the link there, you're actually able to see exactly what you're taught in any individual module. So you can go right down to exactly what I'm taught in first year, exactly what I'm taught in second year, third year, and critically and importantly, in MTU's case, every single one of those modules actually had both input in the module development from one of our commercial partners and had to be rubber stamped when the program was being built by a separate industry partner to ensure that what we're doing is rational and is actually going to help you in your career and in obtaining jobs. Next one. Based on the last few years, the general course has dropped in points. Is it expected to go up this year? I'm not sure what program is being referred to there. The super majority of engineering programs have increased in points over the last number of years. So I can't answer that question, unfortunately, because I don't know which program is being referred to. What is the difference between environmental engineering and environmental management? Environmental management is the broad context of it, managing ecosystems and environmental systems. Environmental engineering, which is the focus within the Faculty of Engineering, is specifically building, designing, implementing, and developing the O&M, operational maintenance protocols and procedures around those systems to be deployed. So specifically, it maybe to broaden the question, what's the difference between, say, a course that's specifically only management and maybe the management type programs that you would see in the Faculty of Engineering? One that's broadly management may look at more so at the business context, whereas those in the Faculty of Engineering will look more so at the systems level context of anything, be that environment or be it something else. Is an Erasmus an option if I do qualify or if I do quantity surveying? And will I also get to go to work placement at some point through the college? So yes, absolutely, Erasmus is an option. We have in and outbound Erasmus students across all programs in MTU. So it's available to all MTU students. And absolutely, yes, you will have one of those, as I mentioned earlier on, 6 to 9 month placement as part of the program. So both is certainly true. Do you need to do any courses after the common entry to even further specialize? So do you need to do a bridging module, I suppose, is what's being asked here. The answer, and the critical important piece of common entry engineering in MTU relative to where you might see it elsewhere, is you are guaranteed entry into the program that you select as your preferred option, okay, on entry into common entry engineering. So what that means is that you won't get to the end of first year, want to do a program and not be able to do the program because the number of places aren't available. So that's not true in MTU. Do you need to do bridging modules to go into those programs? Not that I'm aware of, okay? And any kind of bridging that might be undertaken will be integrated into your study, okay? So you won't have to go and do a whole pile of other stuff in order to go from common entry into any of the programs that are associated with that. Which engineering course has the widest range of careers? That's a very hard question to answer, actually. I would say none, to be honest, and all. What do I mean by that? I had again, as I mentioned, I'm originally qualified as electrical electronic engineer, so undertook a mechanical engineering master's. In my undergraduate program, I had the unusual scenario where I worked for an investment bank as part of undergraduate placement. And indeed, if you went to many of the investment banks, you would find them populated by engineers of all veins, civil, mechanical, all types of engineers. Equally, engineers pivot into careers in accountancy, and they pivot into all kinds of different careers. Okay, so there is a very, very broad possible option in terms of careers for all fields of engineering, and I would include architects, quantity surveyors, and all students that would go through the Faculty of Engineering because of the nature of the programs that you're undertaking. However, that being said, in all of the individual disciplines, and you needn't take my word for it, and I would advise you not to take necessarily solely one person's opinion or word on anything, but if you looked at the Irish Jobs Survey or international jobs profiles, you would see in all of the various domains and professions of engineering, there's an increase in available positions per student headcount, and indeed there's an increase in the wage that outstrips the economic inflation or growth. So why would you leave is the question. How much demand is there for a marine electrotechnology course? Is there much competition as the class numbers are quite small? Yeah, this is an interesting one. So marine electrotechnology will be the backbone of offshore renewable energy, in Ireland. Okay, so it's one of these core sitting at the crossroads type programs. It perhaps is not recognized to CAO students at this point in time how crucial this program is going to be for Ireland's ambition in this space and our deployment of large amounts of offshore renewable. So it's a good time to get into that program, I would say. So the numbers are relatively low at this point in time, but I would expect to grow significantly over the course of the next 5 years as many of the government's announcements around sustainability and around the future of the country start to be operationalized. Critically and importantly, the National Maritime College of Ireland is the only certification location in the country for you to work in the marine sector. So it's the only, let's say, gateway that you can go through to work in maritime shipping and to work in offshore. You would have to go through that at some point in time to be trained. People say engineering is more practical in MTU compared to other colleges in Cork. Could you elaborate on this and what they mean by practical? Okay, yeah. So yes is the answer to that. Engineering in MTU is highly focused on ensuring not only do you have the theoretical knowledge to give you a good long career, but also that you can apply that knowledge in whichever engineering domain you might be in. What does that mean? That typically means that in most of the modules, as I said earlier on, which are the shortest atomic unit of learning that we have, they're the courses. That means in most of those modules, we have what we call a 2+2. So you might have 2 hours of lectures and 2 hours of lab work. Okay, so lab work can not just mean I go into a lab and pour chemicals together. It's different to what you might have seen as a Leaving Cert student. It may mean you're moving into a design room and a design space. Let's say, for instance, if we looked at mechanical engineering, where you may be looking at pressure vessel design, and you'll actually have potentially vessels right in front of you. You'll be able to see the direct application of the mathematics and the knowledge to make you more effective engineer when you're completed. So that's what it means by being more practical. It doesn't mean, critically and importantly, it doesn't mean a degradation or a reduction, let's say, in your theoretical capability. It means that you're more capable of applying that theory into the context that you need to apply it in, be that in a pharmaceutical plant or be that in a power station. Can you talk about the biomedical course and what it involves? So again, I direct you to the website rather than diving deep into one particular program. What I will say about biomedical engineering is it's a program we're very proud of. It has a number of scholarships associated with the program, and tends to be one of a programs very well regarded in the pharmaceutical sector and in the medical devices sector. It has many award-winning students come out of that program. So again, if you looked up MTU Biomedical Engineering Student Prize, you will see a number of students receiving national and international student prizes. So it's a very good program in general. What are the job opportunities for mechanical engineering? Again, broad and in many domains. So job opportunities for mechanical engineer could be everything from offshore oil and gas, renewable activities, onshore in terms of pharmaceutical sector. You could end up working with Stryker devices and medical device design, or J&J. You could equally end up working in power companies. There's a number of companies that are local in aerospace. So, and that space is, sorry for using the word again, but that space is increasing significantly. So there is opportunities currently in aerospace, and emerging opportunities in emerging fields of engineering, such as autonomous systems. So that's robotics, if you're not used to it, 4- and 2-legged robotic systems, as well as drone systems, and emerging areas of employment in companies that are looking at near space and other areas. So by the stage you're finished your 4-year degree, you've got to realize that many of these industries that are now just talked about in Silicon Valley and the Bay Area will become to some extent reality in the Southwest region. So many opportunities in all fields of engineering, but certainly in mechanical engineering across those areas. Can you talk about construction management and the kind of companies you could potentially work for? In terms of the program itself, again, going back to my mantra, I'd encourage you to go back to our website, look up the MT code, drill all the way down through everything that's covered in the program, okay? In terms of the kinds of companies that you could work for, all of the traditional building companies that you're aware of, you'll have seen their signs in terms of building, as well as all of those companies which you will have seen, like of Seafield and others, Erup and others companies of that nature. There's emerging sectors in terms of pod design. So construction management graduates go into those companies. There's companies that are related to building services. You can move into those companies if you're not directly on the building site type of thing. And indeed, like all of the other areas of engineering, graduates from that program can also diversify into areas that their skill set is highly useful to. What I mean by that is that you could find yourself working for pharmaceutical companies and others on their facilities management site. Okay, so there's lots of job opportunities and lots of areas they could potentially pivot to. What sort of examinations and certifications would a level 8 electrical engineering graduate need to work overseas? So again, Engineers Ireland certifies our programs. So you have that capacity to work overseas coming out of the program. Depending on the overseas location, specifically talking about electrical engineering, if you're looking to work in the US in some of the critical infrastructure development, there's specific examinations you need to undertake in order to work in specific areas. Equally, that will be the same case for many of the Commonwealth countries. So South Africa and Australia, they will vary depending on location. You're fully free and able to work across the EU, however. Is there a master's for nautical science? Not currently, but imminently due. So it will be in place. If you're joining as a CAO student, it will be in place by the stage it becomes a consideration for you. Do you need to study any particular subjects beforehand for quantity surveying? No, I would say for QS, however, for quantity surveying, it's good at least to have some understanding, which you may not have at this point in time, of accountancy. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily say it's something that you absolutely need on the way in, but it is reflected in the program. Okay, in the nature of the program itself. You'll get all those skill sets coming into the program, but it's a good one to have on the way in. Could you talk about the agricultural engineering courses overall, and what will I study in some of the career opportunities? Thank you. Okay, so I see Professor Walsh has joined us at this point in time. So as the origin point for that, I'll hand this one over to Professor Joe Walsh. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean, and geez, apologies. I was caught between locations. So agricultural engineering is very much mechanical engineering with farm machinery. And if you look at, we'll say, the companies that we have in the agri-tech space, like Dairy Master, McHale Engineering, Abbey Machinery, Dramone Engineering, there's fantastic opportunities, both nationally and internationally, for students who undertake agricultural engineering. The other thing is that, as I said, it is very much a mechanical engineering program with farm machinery. So there is always the opportunity to engage in a mechanical program or a mechanical area coming from, I suppose, a program like agricultural engineering. So a lot of students, for example, who do agricultural engineering would go into companies like maybe Liebherr Container Cranes. They are very employable in that sector also.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks, Joe. Okay, can you talk all about civil engineering? So I've already covered structural, so I might jump that one because I see we don't have a whole pile of time, and Philip will keep me honest and cut me off once we run out of time here. Are there many engineering apprenticeships around MTU? There are a couple. Okay, so there are alternative routes. What's really important here, and is something we've actively cultivated in MTU, and this goes for across all of our programs, or broad suite of programs, is we have a ladder system. Okay, so this allows you to enter in through many routes, either through further education colleges, through traditional craft apprenticeships, through level 7 programs. But there are certainly a number of traditional apprenticeships that are emerging in MTU. Okay, so
yes. Civil is coming down the tracks there, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. So we have one specifically in civil engineering that's coming that I'd encourage you to look at. If that is the specific domain space of engineering that you're looking at, there is one. It's already running in ATU and Seamus. Where's the second location?
Yeah, Galway and Sligo, both ATU campuses.
Yeah. So it's running in ATU on 2 campuses and will be arriving for MTU for next year. So again, there'll be a bit of news around that, so you'll be able to see what that is and how you apply. How often is there practical work in mechanical engineering, and it is at the majority of equal work? So again, I'm going to try and answer this as a broad question across all of engineering. So as mentioned previously, we aim for 50-50%. Okay. Now, again, practical work can mean both design and direct hands-on with system, but it means you're in a lab doing design work or something of that nature. It's broadly speaking around that percentage, but in some modules it can be less, in some modules it can be more. It depends on the module. Again, I'd encourage you to go back to the MTU website, drill it all the way down, and if you go to those module descriptors, you can actually see the percentage of practical work. And that'll answer the next question. You can also see the percentage breakdown of examination and components for every single module, everything we teach. What is the cost of living like in Cork? Is there a guaranteed student accommodation? Cork is an expensive location to live in. There's no denying that. The current cost of living in Cork, Philip may have that figure off the top of his head, but it's a broad figure. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to answer that directly. So, Philip, you maybe.
I don't have that figure there, but if our accommodation office can be contacted at accommodationcork@mtu.ie, and they'll assist students find accommodation. All of the student accommodation apartments, there's a good few of them that are located just off campus, but our accommodation service will help students find the contacts for that and the rates for each of them as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Philip. And the second part of your question is is there guaranteed student accommodation housing? So the earlier you contact, the more you can guarantee housing, but we don't directly reserve housing for students at MTU. Do you need to study any particular subjects beforehand for construction management? No specific subjects other than the requirements as outlined on the MTU website. Again, I'd encourage you to go to that website. Are CAO points likely to jump this year as highlighted in the media? We don't expect a step jump, but we do expect a gradual increase in CAO points. So my advice to anybody undertaking any program is aim for the maximum possible points you can achieve. Be very careful about your level 7 programs, in particular when you're selecting MTU programs. So if you have an ambition to work in a particular area, as there's lots of questions about it, let's say structural engineering, make sure to select the level 7 that accompanies the level 8 program, because the points are typically lower. And when you join us, there is a route from level 7 programs to level 8 programs. What career opportunities come with quantity surveying? Again, broad and many. As with construction management, there are opportunities to work with all the big companies and a diversification of potential options as well. Is there any way to become an architect through architectural technology? I can answer that question. Okay, so I would encourage the person who posed that question specifically to he emailed the head of architecture within MTU, Samuel Vardy. You'll find him on the website for the architectural programs. He'll be able to answer that specifically. So if we
And
jump
Sean,
on,
if there's any questions anyone has that's not answered tonight, they can email cao@mtu.ie and we'll happily follow up and put them in contact with the necessary departments.
Perfect. So go to cao@mtu.ie and Philip will reroute, or that function will reroute people to whoever. So if we jump to the next one, Philip, let me know when I run out of time so that I don't overrun. Would you be able to study abroad with a lot of engineering courses during your time? I've already answered that question. So there are many study abroad options. Can the minimum requirement of an O1 change in maths? So I'm not quite sure about that, but the minimum requirements for maths are up on the website, and the requirements will not shift. They don't radically change like that, so that they remain the same. So what's up there now is what your requirements are. Hi, Sean, on question of maths. How important is it for architectural technology? Is their entry point for architecture going to be way higher as indicated in the media? Again, as answered previously, I expect an increase in entry points broadly across engineering. Our CAO application rate for MTU specifically for engineering indicates that. Again, in terms of maths requirements, as mentioned previously, some of the most effective and best engineers I've known didn't have the highest level of maths coming into the engineering program. So if you're concerned about that, don't be. You can make up that ground. I wouldn't be concerned. Is engineering learned for practically? So I'm not sure about that question, but I assume the question relates to the practical application of mathematics, which is the nature of engineering. Coming from the north of Ireland, what level of maths is required to study engineering at GCSE/A level? Coming from the north of Ireland, I'd encourage you to look at our international page. If you're not finding the answers that you need there, again, go back to the CAO query. So on our international page, it has a mapping of our equivalents for any student outside of the Republic of Ireland. What's the difference between construction management and quantity surveying? Again, would encourage you to go to the web page. There's a blurb there detailing each program, so you'll see the differential between the two, and drill all the way down to the module level, because you'll see actually what we teach from first year all the way through to your finishing time. Will leaving cert physics help me with electrical engineering, and/or how applicable is it? Yes, any background in physics, applied mathematics. Indeed, I studied accountancy and leaving cert. All of those topics are actually applicable and useful in the context of engineering. So certainly. I think I've already answered this question. Structural engineering is in demand around the world. Absolutely, yes. What careers can a graduate biomedical engineer have? So I've answered this to some extent, but many of the biomedical engineering students would find their way into the medical medtech sector and into pharmaceutical companies. What is the general split? 2 seconds, apologies. Apologies. What is the general split between theory, practical work in the courses? So I've answered that earlier on in the call. You mentioned, is it possible to work? So for these questions that I'm mentioning that I answered earlier on, there will be a recording of this call propagated to you. I believe that's correct, Philip. So you'll be able to go through everything I've said here. You mentioned it is possible to work as a civil engineer after completing a structural. What about the other way around? Do you need a master's to work as a structural engineer? Yeah, it's more challenging to migrate the other way around to answer that question, Daniel. You know, structural engineering covers a lot of aspects that are applicable the other direction. So I'd encourage you to look at both programs in detail. What are class sizes like? Oh, important question, Moira. MTU differentiates itself from many other academic institutions in that our class sizes are much smaller. So lab sizes typically are no greater than about 20 students. Okay, I don't believe any lab exceeds more than about 21, 22 students. Our lecture sizes are, I think in the Faculty of Engineering, we have no pool of students that's larger than 60 or 80 students. And typically you're talking about a lecture hall size of 40 students, 40 to 60 students. So class sizes are much smaller than they would be in the traditional universities. It gets you much closer to lectures. And indeed, another differential that's important is the lecturer delivers the lab. Okay, so we don't just walk in and deliver a lecture and you're handed off to a graduate student to complete the lab. The same person that's delivering the lecture to you will, in 90+% of the cases, be those that are actually doing the practical lab with you as well. So it follows through.
Sean, you want to take 2 or 3 more questions before we finish up? And again, if any questions haven't been answered, people can email cao@mtu.ie and we will follow up tomorrow to answer any questions that haven't been addressed. And Sean, you can scroll down the questions as well, just in case there's some that have already been covered, just in case you see any that are probably more urgent.
Okay, yep, perfect. So I'll do 2 more questions. So what does a smart product engineering course entail? Again, I'd encourage you to go to the MTU website. This is a very interesting course, actually. So if you have an interest in this domain space, smart product engineering covers the holistic, broad design of intelligent systems. It's an area that has a significant growth in demand from the industry side, and it's probably not really maybe completely clear to a CAO student how good a career you could potentially have out of this. So worth looking at. And one more, to go into planning in the future, what course would allow that? So if you're looking to go into maybe urban planning or something of that nature in the future, the portfolio of courses across civil, structural, and construction management potentially will allow you to pivot that direction. But I'll hand over to Seamus maybe just to finish out the answer to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I think any one of the ones that you've mentioned, civil, structural, quantity surveying, potentially construction management, and maybe as a good base degree, and maybe do an after course in urban planning online or a postgrad, potentially to pick up that side of it, you know. But in the first instance, I would direct them towards civil engineering.
Perfect. Thanks, Seamus. And I think that's it, folks. We're out of time. So again, as Philip said, and I believe he'll say in a second, any questions that we haven't covered, you have an email address to email. So I'd encourage you to send them there and we'll answer them as quickly as possible.